Today we're going to cover animations using Sequencer. Now, normally Sequencer requires you to make custom macros for whatever animations you want to do, but I've got you. I've made a huge macro that integrates with Sequencer to do all kinds of things, and you don't need to do any macro writing of your own. And I'll show you some of the things you can do and how to do it. Should be pretty simple. So we can do things like, for example, attach an animation to a token. So we'll follow the token around, and then we can remove that animation. We can also, I walked through the, just grab it, adds it. Let's turn that off. There we go. We can also do things where we trigger animations between two different tokens or tiles. And then combining a bunch of animations and sound effects for a larger effect. Okay, so we'll switch over to the DM view and we'll show you how all this stuff works. So let's start with something simple. This effect down here, when you step on this, it adds this effect to the token. All right, so we go in here and when the token comes into the tile, we're adding a tag to it. We use the tag to target it with the animation effect, and then we remove the tag. This is something pretty standard with my macros. They all work based on tags. So anytime you want to throw any type of macro ability, effect, whatever, at something, you just give it a tag and then throw it at that tag. So for the macro itself, it has a bunch of different things that you can send to it to get a bunch of different stuff. So to make it easier for everyone to use, I've done a couple of things. So we go to my compendium pack. And again, I've put them all in a folder. They don't come in a folder, but I have added the TP and square braces to all the various aspects of my module to make them easier to find in your compendium. And I've added documentation for macros, specifically so far, the media attack macro from the last video, and the sequencer mega macro, which is the one that we're using here. So if you bring up the macro itself, or if you bring up this documentation, you will get documentation on all of the different things that you can do with the macro and how to do them. So it's in there. Or if we go to the macro itself and we open up the macro, let's, oops, I'll grab that window. That was a bit of a delay. All the documentation is also there in the comments at the top of the macro, showing you all the things that you can do with it. Now, this certainly doesn't do everything that Sequencer can do. Sequencer can do a ton of stuff, but a lot of what Sequencer can do, you can access through this macro without having to do any macro writing of your own. So the first thing it's asking for, or not asking for, you can put these in any order you want. First one that I have here is the file, which is the animation you're playing. The way to find those, by the way, if you have Sequencer installed, is you go to your token controls, and you come down here, and there is the show sequencer database. It looks like a barrel. We open that up, and all of your sequencer animations are listed in here. You can select specific packs or modules that you want to search through, or you can search through all of them, and you can do a search. So if I'm looking for a sword animation of some kind, there's a whole bunch of sword animations. And then you can just click the preview play here, and it will play the animation over here so you can see what it looks like. And then if it's an animation that you want to use, you just click the little barrel icon, and that will copy the name of the animation in, and then you just paste that in after the colon for file. Right? Now, if the file name contains any spaces, put it in quotes. And I mean, you can put quotes in even if it doesn't have spaces. It won't hurt anything. So you can also do it like this if you want to just get in the habit so you never forget. That gives you the same thing. The next one, attach, is what allows the animation to follow the token around. Otherwise, when the animation is created, like if we take attach out, I'll show you what happens here. Move that. Update the tile. We'll come over here and remove the effect on this tile. And then we'll come over to this one. Oops, I already did it. I keep cutting the corner here and messing things up. So there we go. Got rid of the animation. Let's walk over here. That's one thing you got to watch for when you're working with Monk's active tiles is you're moving on an angle and you cut that corner, you still entered the tile and you still trigger it. When we come down here, I enter it and the animation is there, but when I walk away, the animation stays where it is. It doesn't attach to its target. So that's what the attach argument does. I cut that corner. I constantly do it. Okay. All right. So that's what the attach does. So we're going to put that back in. And again, you can put these in any order. All right. So I can put attach here. I can put it at the very beginning if I want. Doesn't matter. And then we have our target, which is the tag test, which we added to whatever triggers this tile. And then we give the effect, the animation, a name. And the reason why we give it a name is so that we can target that animation to remove it later. If you don't give it a name, then it just plays once and that's it. If you want it to constantly loop, you give it a name. And then you can use that name to delete that effect later on. And then scale to object. And the reason why you use scale to object is because the animations can be all kinds of different sizes. This particular animation is much larger. Scale to object scales it to whatever it is being targeted on. So whatever tile or token it's being put on, it will scale down. And the 1 means 100%, right? So if you did scale to object 0.5, it would be half the size of whatever it is you targeted. If it's scaled to object 2, it'll be double the size of whatever you targeted, etc. So obviously we wanted the animation to fit the token, be the appropriate size for the token. So just scale to object 1. And that's it for that tile. Now for the tile that's removing the effect, all we do is we call the same macro and we just give the name of the effect. And if all you give is the name and the effect and nothing else, it finds that effect by that name and kills it. And so that's how we get rid of the effect whenever we step on that tile. Now, another effect that you saw me use earlier is when I double click on here, it tosses a barrel between the two of them. Now this one, go in here. We have the name of the animation file, which you could change to something else. So if you wanted like a lightning bolt to go between the two of them, you would just go over to your token controls and the sequencer database, and you would just look up lightning. You can see there's a whole bunch of them. Find one that you like. Hit the barrel. Copy that in over the other name. If you're changing an animation or you just add it in after file colon. Again, put quotes around it if it has spaces in it. And then that's the animation that it will choose. Then you have your source. Where is the animation coming from? And you target, where is the animation going to? And the two target dummies, training dummies, one of them I have tagged as source, and the other one I have tagged as target. You can make the tags whatever you want. They don't have to literally be the words source and target. And then SIM is short for simultaneous. And the reason why you do that is these source and targets can be groups, not just individual tokens. And if it's a group, then the animation is going to play multiple times for each source and each target. If you don't have this simultaneous tag in here, then it will play the animations one after another. And if you've got a bunch of sources and a bunch of targets, that can take a long time. Now, maybe that's the way you want the animation to go. You want them to go one after another, in which case don't put that in. But if you want them to all fire off at the same time, then you put in this SIM, or is short for simultaneous. And you can also type out the full word simultaneous. That works as well. So for example, if I have two targets, two sources and two targets, and then I activate this, every source targets every target. And then the last one is we're going to mix together a bunch of sounds and animations, stack them together to get the effect of this pit trap. So let's reset the pit trap and let's get rid of extras here. So we walk into the pit trap, it gets triggered, it does the axe swing, and it collapses the floor, and there's a puff of smoke, and you get sound effects. Now that may seem really complicated, but all I did is I found a picture of a hole in the ground for the tile. And then, now I haven't put any mechanics in this, so it doesn't do any saving throws, it doesn't do any damage. It's just the animation and sound effects, just to focus on how to do the animations. Obviously, as I've shown in previous videos, you can put in saving throws and you can put in damage and all that other kind of stuff. This is strictly just the animations and sound effects, just to show how it works. So first thing you do is you do stop movement. That gets the token, and in the stop movement, you always have it snap to grid. And that's just so that the token is sitting in the right spot. All right. Now, one thing I did notice as I was entering, a mistake that I made, is the axe animation was happening when the token was still in the process of entering. And so the axe was swinging down here rather than in the middle where it was supposed to. And we can easily fix that. So we're going to do some on-the-fly repairs here. And all I do is put in a delay of like a half a second and put that in after the stop token movement. So that allows the token to fully enter and settle into position for the animation, because the animation targets the token. If the token isn't fully entered the square, then the animation will be like the way it was happening is the animation was happening like over here rather than here where we want it. So then all I did is I just searched through the sequencer database, and also a module that I have that I find very handy. It's not required, but I find it very useful, is the Sonus GDC sound browser. And it's a massive library of sounds. And when you install the module, all the sounds are copied onto your computer. So it takes a chunk of hard drive space. But then you can search through the sounds, right? So it's just a very simple way of finding sound effects. So I just did a search for animations, like the axe animation and the falling rocks animation, and things like that. And then I just put them in with delays, just like the delay that I just added, so that they would line up. And I just played around with it, adjust the delay a little bit more here, a little bit less there, until they looked and sounded right. Right? So we're playing the sound file, very simple. Select the sound file, play it for everyone, full volume, no fade, restricted to the scene. So only players who are on this scene will hear the sound effect, rather than if they're on other scenes, which can confuse them. And you always play the sound effect first, because sound effects generally take longer, right? So I find, and maybe you could find a situation where this rule of thumb doesn't apply, but I generally find you want to start your sound effect first, and then start your animation, and they line up better. So again, we have file : the name of the animation. And for this one, because the animation only runs once and it's just playing here, there's no other extra arguments. So very simple, very straightforward. And then we wait. And the amount of time that I wait is 3/4 of a second, is simply that's how long the animation takes to run. And I ran it a few times and just kept adjusting this delay until it felt right. And then next we're playing another animation. Actually, no, in this case, we're not playing an animation. We are playing a sound file. My macro handles both sound and video. And the reason why I did this rather than just playing the sound using the normal play sound file action is because this doesn't have the ability of stopping the sound early. It'll play the full sound file. Now, there is a command, an action, I should say, in here for stopping sounds. Right there, stop sound. All right. The reason why I didn't do it this way is because this will stop all the sounds, right? And you may have a situation where you've got like several sounds that are overlapping. One of them you want to stop early, the other ones you don't. And you can't do that with this, or at least not that I know of. So what I did is, as part of my macro, is it can play sounds, and you can also designate the duration of the sound. So it only plays the first second, 1,000 milliseconds of the sound. So I get the sound to play exactly as long as I want and no longer. You can also, there is a loop trigger that you can use for looping a sound. And then you can also, because you would just name the effect, same as you do with an animation, you can also call that name to stop the looping sound later on. And again, unlike the stopped sounds that you do through multi-active tiles, which stops all the sounds this tile is generating, you can target. So like I could have like 6 different sounds all looping, and I could just individually target one to stop it. So that's why I did it that way with my macro. So again, we put in a delay, and then we play another sound file. This sound file, I just let it play the entire sound file, so I didn't need to use my macro, but I could have used my macro for all the sound file playing. I didn't need to go back and forth. And then we'll reveal the tile, which is the picture of the pit underneath. And then we play 2 animations simultaneously. Right? And the animations are the dropping of the stones and the puff of smoke. Now, the dropping of the stones and the axe, those ones, they're set so they only play, like the axe, its natural size is just that size, so I didn't need to scale it. For the collapsing stones, I did scale the object, and I made it slightly larger than the square, because the pit I've also made slightly larger than the square. Because the original trap that I was modeling this off of, people who are standing nearby can also fall into the pit. So I made the pit a bit bigger than the square so that it makes sense people standing beside it could fall in. So that's the only reason why it's as large as it is. And so I scaled it, and I scaled it 1.5, larger than the square, so that, again, it fits the scale of the visual of the pit. And then the next one, the puff of smoke, I didn't scale that. I could have, so it'd just be a small puff of smoke the size of the thing. But I originally did it without the scaling, and the effect just looked good to me. So I just left it like that. And again, because it's just playing the animation on the tile calling it, because it always knows the tile calling it. So you don't need to put a tag on it or anything like that. If you don't specify a target, it will just target the tile that is calling the macro. So all you need to do is just give it the name of the animation, and it plays it on the tile that called it one time. So very simple, straightforward. So for a lot of your animations, that's all you got to do is just give it the name of the animation, and it does the rest for you. Okay. So we'll just take another look at that. Reset it here, and you can see how all of that blends together. I think that looks pretty good. All right, so that's how to use the sequencer mega macro in my module, and allows you to access a lot of the features of sequencer without having to write any macros yourself. I've already updated the module and uploaded it with the documentation and with the better compendium names. So things will be a bit more clear. If you have any questions or anything, the link for my module is in the description, as well as the link to my Discord, so you can get in touch with me. Fire me a message and maybe I can help you out. All right. Have a good one.